We're halfway through the NFL season, and few teams have set themselves apart from the rest of the pack. Half of the league is sitting at 500, and with few games to go, the race for the playoffs will hotly be contested. The NFC West and AFC North currently have 3 teams in the playoffs and look to continue their domination throughout the league. Even in the offseason, the NBA continues to make headlines. The hire of GM Daryl Mori to the Sixers have made rumors fly everywhere. The biggest name in those rumors is former MVP James Harden. Will the Houston connection bring Harden to the city of brotherly love? Will NFL teams continue their red-hot start, or will teams show their true nature? Can Cam bring the Patriots back from the brink? We'll discuss all of this and more. I'm Christian Gardner. We're talking the best of the best. We're talking All Pro. Welcome back into Hall Pro. I'm Christian Gardner. I'm alongside my beautiful, beautiful panel. Rony, Jerez, Veronica, Gail. How are we doing, guys?
I'm doing outstanding being here with you three. You too. I feel great.
We're hanging in there, making it through the week, end of the week, so good vibes all around.
Look at us.
Well, we're going to jump right into it now. I talked about it in my rundown. The NFL has 17 teams that are 500 or better right now. And so at week 8, halfway through the season, who are some teams that you're saying, they can actually play for a championship, or you're excited to see? And some are some pretenders. Who's that fool's gold, and who's an imposter among us? Rony, I'll go with you first.
I love that imposter among us. That's very topical. I found that very funny in the rundown. And in the rundown, you said you wanted some hot takes, so I had to bring some hot takes. I'm not that much of a hot take guy, but we'll see where this goes. So for my contender, I picked the Arizona Cardinals. I found that I was really high on them before the season. I'm still high on them now. I love what I've been seeing from the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray is putting on, and he's taken a quantum leap from his rookie season. He's having a great sophomore season. Not quite the season that Patrick Mahomes did in his second year, but Kyler Murray's going on a pseudo MVP tour. He still has a long way to go, but I think he can be in that top 5-6 MVP. They're in the toughest division, but they have been holding their own. They're the second in the division, so I think that says a lot about them. They're a young team, they do have one of the best wide receivers of all time in Larry Fitzgerald, and then they also have D-Hop. Those are 2 huge weapons for Kyler Murray. He can run on the legs. He has weapons there. And on defense, we have Budda Baker doing the things he did, and Patrick Patterson. I feel like they played very well. And the X factor for them, rookie Isaiah Simmons. He's a utility knife. I loved him coming out of Clemson. It was a great pick for them. So that's a team I'm excited for that I feel like can make some damage at the later stage of the season. And for my pretender, this one might be a shocker. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they are a 7-0 team, the only undefeated team, and I am not sold on them at all. They have had a very, very easy schedule, and they're going to continue to have an easy schedule, so they're going to keep pretending all the way into the playoffs. So they play Dallas, sorry, Christian. They play Cincy twice. They play Jacksonville, and they play Washington. Those are 5 very, very attainable games for them, so I'm not really sold on Pittsburgh.
Me personally, I have to agree. I also said the Cardinals. They had a well-timed bye week that definitely helped them, and they do have a weaker slate going in. So I do think they do have a shot of making the playoffs. My weaker team, I was thinking the Ravens possibly. They lost to the Steelers and the Chiefs. Didn't really look good for them, so definitely my weaker team.
Now, you two brought up some big teams and some big divisions. The NFC West and the AFC North both have 3 teams slated to go to the playoffs right now. But as you both brought up, Rony, you don't believe in the Steelers. Veronica, you're not so sold on the Ravens being able to contend for a Super Bowl right now. So as of right now, with 3 teams in both the NFC West and the AFC North slated to make the playoffs, do you think they can make it all the way to the end of the season and it stays that way? Rony?
It would be very, very interesting to see. It's almost like, this is kind of off topic, but in MLB, we had a perfect divisional playoffs where it was only the West and the East playing each other, no Central, so that's I found that similar. But in the NFC West, I do believe that can happen. Like I've said multiple occasions, it's the best division in football, and I couldn't see 3 playoff teams come out of there, but in the AFC North, I don't see that happening, so I don't think both of them are going to be able to do that. Although I said that the Pittsburgh Steelers are kind of pretenders, I do think they're going to make the playoffs. They have like a 98% chance at this point, but I don't trust Cleveland, though. Cleveland is that third team, and Baker Mayfield has played sporadically. There are times where they really matured from last year, but then this year there are some losses where he's like, what are we doing here? But one thing is they do have a kind of easy schedule, so that's something to keep an eye on. They play Houston, Philly, Jacks, and both the New York teams. So Cleveland has the potential, but in that AFC North, it's getting a little crowded at the top with the Ravens and the Steelers. Those are going to be the ones jockeying for position. And Cleveland, I feel like they lose games that they're supposed to win more often than not.
I would say for the NFC West, definitely the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Both are having very good seasons. I could see them making it. Rams, not really sure. They're 5-3. Bears are also 5-3. So right neck and neck. It could be a toss-up. For the AFC North, I think the Steelers and the Ravens both have a really good shot of making it. The Browns are a toss-up as well. Baker Mayfield, how will he play? What will he do? So it's interesting to see.
Now, there's a lot of teams that haven't had the same success, we'll say, so far moving on to this season. Halfway through the season, what's some teams or maybe even a player in particular that you think can flip the script and turn things around? Or are you just waiting to see how much they have left? Veronica?
I think both are local teams, the Giants and the Jets. No way they're turning it around. No way, but I think we need to mention them. Giants 1-7, only beating Washington by 1 point. Depressing. Sad to see. And the Jets, somehow even worse. 0-8, have not won a game. Adam Gase, why is he still here? So there's just very disappointed by both our local teams. None of them will turn it around. It's upsetting to watch.
That is a very great point. They have been very upsetting. But for me, one team coming in I was kind of excited for, was the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, they had the makings of having a pretty nice team in the AFC with Deshaun Watson in the middle of there. But ever since they lost D-Hop, that absolutely, I feel like, crumbled their organization from top to bottom. And it all started with Bill O'Brien. We all know Bill O'Brien, how inadequately he was as a GM and as a coach. So good for them for firing him. He might get a job somewhere else. But I felt like coming in, they were an exciting team because I just really, really liked Deshaun Watson and his talent. Despite his team being 1-6 so far, he's had about 2,000 yards with 15 touchdowns. He's on pace to have about 35 touchdowns, which I feel like is phenomenal. But the thing is, he is sacked constantly there in the pocket. And behind the line of scrimmage, that offensive line is just moribund. He is constantly running for his life. So it's very, very disappointing. I feel like Deshaun Watson can still be playing at a high level as best as he can with the team around him. He still has Fuller, but he still has Fuller, he still has Stills. But it's just, I don't see the Texans moving anywhere up in that division, starting off 1-6.
You know, it feels really rough for Deshaun Watson. I mean, coming into this season, almost had an MVP candidate coming into this, but Bill O'Brien, what he's done to that Houston team, it will be felt for years to come. But I'm going to shift things over to someone who has been cooking this entire season, and that is the possible MVP of Russell Wilson. He's for sure been the top guy for me so far in this NFL season. But for you guys, do you think anyone can catch Russell Wilson and before he can finally get an MVP in the NFL? Ronnie?
Let Russ cook. You said it. He has been cooking, and my goodness, it's a sight to see. Russell Wilson is obviously the number one favorite to win the MVP. He's been doing things that are just phenomenal that you barely see. Historic, if you will. But if there's anybody that can catch up to him, if there's any sleeping bear that has been kind of, on the brink of waking up, it's Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, I think is the best quarterback in the league. He, albeit it was against the Jets, he was the AFC Offensive Player of the Week last week. He had 5 touchdowns. He had 416 yards, 73% passing completion. The thing is, though, it was the Jets, so we gotta keep that in mind. But he is a nice 6-1 and leading his division, and still looking as strong as ever. They don't have the hardest schedule in the world coming up, so they are gonna win a lot more games. I feel like they're gonna finish at the top of the AFC. And They have the weapons around him that are really going to make him shine. And if there's anybody that can heat up in this league, it's Patrick Mahomes.
Great point, Ronnie. I do think Russell Wilson deserves the MVP. I've been comparing him to the Leonardo DiCaprio of football. He's just been gypped and gypped and gypped out of MVP titles. He's completing 10% more passes than he should be. He's having a great season, doing great things. Historic, as Ronnie called it before. So I would really like to see him win it.
You know, Veronica, I really like that comparison that you got right there. Because Russell Wilson been in this league for almost, the whole decade so far?
Yeah.
And Russell Wilson, everything he does, already has the Super Bowl and continuously makes that Seattle offense go in one of the top teams in the league every single year, just like our main man, Leo. But I'm going to shift things over to the AFC East. And now looking at the New England Patriots, now this is not the Patriots team of old at all. This is probably the first time in maybe our lifetime that we have seen the Patriots be less than 500. And standing at 2-5, do you think that the Patriots can turn this thing around? And are you believing in Cam Newton? Veronica, we'll start with you.
It's everything. Anything is possible, but I think it's unlikely. Only 4 teams have made the playoffs since 2010, being at the 2-5 record, the same as the Patriots. They do have the Jets twice in their schedule, so those are 2 easy wins. But they also have the Ravens, Cardinals, and Chargers, so they do have some hard matchups in there. So possible, but I'm thinking unlikely.
You know, like you said, when you start off 2-5, that is such a tall task to overcome. And when you have the team that the Pats have assembled, it's kind of, it's not overwhelming. It's just whelming. Like Bill Belichick can only do so much. He's not on the field. He's a great He's a great defensive mind. He's a great head coach, probably the best coach of all time. But when you have this roster, and Cam Newton hasn't looked the same. He started off hot in the beginning of the season, but he hasn't looked the same ever since he was diagnosed with COVID. And he's dropped off significantly since his accuracy went down and his production went down as a whole. So Cam, I'm starting to lose faith in Cam and the Pats. And when you have a hot team like the Bills, when you have a hot team like the Dolphins in that division, it's gonna be very hard for the Patriots to continue to be competitive in the division. And it just really says kind of the coincidence of when Brady left, and the first year he leaves, they start off 2-5, and he's doing wonders down there in Tampa. So it says a lot about the hole he left. It says a lot about Cam and about the team as a whole.
Now looking at the top of the AFC East, you already brought up the Bills, Ronnie, standing at 6-2 at the top of the division, but closely followed behind by the Miami Dolphins. Now I want to get your guys' opinions about this Dolphins team. Do you think that they can overcome the Bills? And is it the Tua Tagovailoa effect, or are they still grasping for straws at the middle of the division? Veronica?
Here's my thing. Tua's only played 1 game. He's still the new kid on the block. I don't know if I can really trust him to bring a team forward that he's hardly really played for. Bills, on the other hand, they have a great defense. They have Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen, 2 great players working together. So I think the Bills will probably beat the Dolphins.
I'm going to have to agree. Tua, he looked all right on his first start. He had about 100 yards. The defense really carried that team in that game against the Rams. But Tua, I feel like this is something that the Dolphins can build off of. It wasn't a terrible start. It wasn't a great start. But it was his first start. He got it under his belt. I'm sure jitters were a part of it. But he showed greatness in college. And I feel like he can play to that level in the NFL. But I think it still might a little be too early for the Dolphins. They are a very young team. But they are going to be a threat and a force to be reckoned with in that division years to come. But the Bills, you had an early MVP candidate with Josh Allen. He's been playing great. As you said, Stefon Diggs was a great pickup for them. And their coaching, Coach McDermott, he is doing a phenomenal job there in Buffalo. So I don't see the Dolphins surpassing the Bills. I see them making the playoffs potentially. But it's going to be, I feel like it might be down to the wire because both teams are going to be playing great teams. Bad teams. So they're going to have good records going down. So it's going to be tight at the end.
Yep, definitely going to come down to the wire in that Week 17 matchup as the Bills and the Dolphins will face off. Do you guys think at all that'll be for the division, or are you thinking that the Bills run away with it? Can the Pats come back, or are you going with the Dolphins? Ronnie, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with the Bills. The Bills are gonna finish off, even though they are going to have a tough schedule coming up ahead. They are going to play in the next 3 out of 4 games, they're going to play the NFC West, and we all know how strong the NFC West is. So they're going to be playing Seattle, Arizona. They're going to put the Chargers in there with Justin Herbert. He's been no slacker so far. And then the 49ers and the Steelers, who's been undefeated so far. We'll see how that goes. But the Bills are definitely, I feel like, one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC. And they are going to remain at the top. And when it's all said and done, I feel like they're going to win the division.
I have to completely agree. I think the Bills will be winning, as we just discussed before. I don't think the Dolphins are going to catch up. And a Brady-less Patriots is just not the same. We're not getting the same vibe from them. They're not doing as well as they usually do. So definitely the Bills will be taking this one.
You know, I think I agree with you guys. I would love to see the Dolphins make that something interesting. Maybe it comes down to Week 17. But I think you guys are right, and it's going to be the Bills taking the AFC East. But looking at Week 9 for right now, what's a matchup you're all interested in, and what's a lock you know you're guaranteed? I'm feeling very good about this prediction. Veronica, we'll go with you first.
Game I'm excited for is the Bears versus Titans. Both are good teams. The Titans lost to the Steelers and the Bengals. Wasn't expecting that loss from the Bengals, so that was exciting. Bears have Nick Foles. He's doing great. And they both have great defenses, so I'm very excited to see what they do there, and I'm excited to see those teams.
That is a very great matchup, and the matchup I brought here for today was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New Orleans Saints. And 2 old heads going at it, 2 legends, 2 first-ballot Hall of Famers. This was a rematch from Week 1. They're both in division. They're both 1-2 in the division. So we have the Saints at 5-2. We have the Bucs at 6-2. So this is a very important game for them in terms of playoff hopes and seeding towards the end. I feel like it's going to be very, very entertaining, dynamic. Both teams have weapons that can really put up points on the board. Both quarterbacks are legendary. So we're going to see a very, very fun game, very intense game. It's almost going to have a playoff atmosphere, obviously with no fans, but I feel like it's going to be a very, very detrimental game a very impactful game for both teams. And it might be one of the last times we see Brady versus Breeze in their careers, because we never know what could happen in the future. And they're both, I would say, in the back 9 of their careers.
You know, I agree with those matchups. A lot of firepower within that Saints matchup, and I'm excited to see how the Titans respond after last week losing against the Bengals, like you said, Veronica. But one of the predictions that I'm going to give right now is I think the undefeated Steelers might beat that one team down in Dallas. I don't know. That might just be me. But we're going to shift over to the NBA now. There's a lot of big news with Daryl Mori starting to be the GM down in Philadelphia. And Daryl Mori was the GM for the Houston Rockets, which means a close connection to one former MVP, James Harden. And a lot of speculation over this past week was that can Daryl Mori bring James Harden to the Sixers? So, guys, what do you think about that rumor? How would he fit with the Sixers, or you not buying into it at all? Veronica, we'll go ahead with you.
I mean, the Houston connection there is big. So that's a good sign. I mean, that trade might happen. There's already been speculation of Ben Simmons or Joel moving around. Why not move them around for an MVP? That seems like a good move. So I think there's a chance.
There is definitely a chance. Daryl Morey is a very, very good GM. I feel like he is one of the better GMs in the league, and he knows how to shake things up. If he wants something, he's always going to go get it. We saw in the last trade deadline when he did the bold move of trading all of their big men, and their tallest guy was P.J. Tucker. So he is not afraid to take risks, and now that he's in Philadelphia, we've seen Philadelphia be kind of on the brink of, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, getting to the finals, just that team that's almost there, but they always have that roadblock in like Boston or other teams that really stop them. So the one thing they would have, if they can somehow pair up James Harden with Joel Embiid, that is almost a lock for the finals. I feel like those two right there can complement each other so well, because James Harden not only is a great gifted scorer, one of the best scorers we've ever seen, but he's a gifted passer. He loves to have that big man like Clint Capella, and we have one of the best big men in the league in Joel Embiid. He can shoot it from 3, and he can back people down, and he can just be physical down low. So if those two can get paired up, that would be almost a matchmaking perfection for the Philadelphia 76ers. So the thing is that it might be it's going to be difficult, obviously, because you got to put up a great package to get him. And the Rockets might not even want to do that business with Mori. Who knows? Maybe who knows the relationship there, if it's amicable, if it's not. But if there's anybody that's going to do it, it's Daryl Morey.
But thinking about the Rockets, they were able to get Russell Westbrook last year and change the script for that Rockets team. And like you guys were saying, they're two teams that are kind of locked, trying to make that next jump, and maybe that move can be. And we've heard so many rumors about Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. So, guys, what would you do if you were the GM? Are you going to send Ben Simmons away or Joel Embiid, or you're not touching it at all? Veronica, we'll start with you.
Personally, I would send Ben Simmons away. Why? James Harden, he's a ball-dominant guard. And Ben doesn't really do well playing off the ball, so I think the best move would be to send Ben Simmons.
I 100% agree with you. Ben Simmons is the key centerpiece in this trade package that if the 76ers were to send off to Houston, one players you can add on to Ben Simmons, you can add in Shake Milton, who is a very similar style player. As James Harden, he can shoot threes and he can drive, he can score. He's a very up-and-coming player. I like him. I feel like he played very well this past season. We have Al Horford. Maybe Houston wants to revert back to maybe getting a little more size on their team. Al Horford is a veteran. He might have a pretty hefty contract, but Houston has the means for it. But Al Horford's a good player to get. Tobias Harris, he's a nice scorer. You can pair up in a package. And obviously Ben Simmons is the centerpiece of that. So Daryl Mori has some room to work with here, and he's going to be able to ship off something if he wants to. The one thing is, if I'm Houston, I wouldn't want Ben Simmons and Russell Westbrook on the same team, because that, I feel like, can create a lot of conflict, being that those are two guard-style players, kind of, that can't shoot very well. So that's going to be a hard sell for Houston. But like I said, if you package them with other nice players, I think the deal can be done.
I completely agree with you guys. I feel like Joel Embiid and James Harden, that would be a crazy, crazy duo. And I would love to see it in Philadelphia. But as you were saying, Ronnie, on the Houston side, taking on Ben Simmons doesn't make a lot of sense when you just traded for Russell Westbrook. So if you're able to make a three-team type trade, move Russell Westbrook as well, bring in Ben Simmons and maybe some of the other Sixers role players, maybe something can happen. But that's going to do it here on Hall Pro. Once again, I'm Christian Gardner. My great, great panel of Ryan, Jerez, Veronica, Gail. Thank you guys for coming in. Fantastic for everyone here in the studio. We'll see you next time.